Hello and welcome to my Airbnb training. This is Mercedes. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the slides and then we can do a Q&A afterwards. So the basics of the Airbnb platform. Airbnb is a platform for individuals to rent out their primary residences as lodging for travelers. Of course, now we all know that there are many people who have properties that they purchase or as some also rent just for the purposes of Airbnb. But the original intention is for people to be renting out homes that they actually live in. The company was started by two friends in San Francisco who really just got tired of people, having to come to the city to see them and complaining about the high hotel costs. And these guys actually started the company by renting out their air mattresses in their living rooms, hence the name Airbnb. So that's a little bit of the background. So if you search for Airbnb in your city on the app or online, that's how you can get an average cost of what the prices should be for properties similar to your own. You can then determine, what type of property are you going to rent? Is it a house? Is it an apartment? Is it a room? I mean, there are many, many options for people who want to be Airbnb hosts. You don't have to rent any particular type of property. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Some people have vacation homes, on the beach or in the mountains that they may only use, for a couple months or even a couple weeks out of the year. And the rest of that time, they are renting it out as an Airbnb rental. I work in international development and I used to travel quite considerably before COVID, not quite so much these days, but it's picked back up these last few months. But I've always rented out my house that I live in when I travel. And so I have a single listing for that as an entire unit, but I also have another listing for my son's room, which I lease out whenever he is with his dad, because he's with me half time, he's with his dad half time. So that half time that he's with his dad, I also rent that out as shared accommodation. So you can have more than one type of listing for the exact same property, and you just book your calendar to say, okay, these times I'm going to rent the entire unit. These other times I'm going to just rent a particular part of the unit. Again, there's so much flexibility with Airbnb. You can decide, what works best for your needs. Look at things like, do you have a swimming pool? Do you want guests to be able to cook in your property? Do you have any other amenities that they may like? Like, for example, do you have access to a tennis court? Is there parking? Is the parking covered parking? There's just so many things that you have to consider. Do you want people to use your backyard? All of those things that you think can make your space be more marketable, you include that. But you also want to make sure you consider what you're most comfortable with as well. So what I have found with Airbnb is that there are so many people who are looking for accommodations that are reasonably priced that no matter what you decide, you will still be able to rent your space. I mean, there's just so much more demand than there are spaces available. Don't feel like you have to go above and beyond and have a perfect space and provide all these, amenities that you don't have right now. Because some people decide that they want to do Airbnb, they go and they take out business loans and they start accumulating all this debt, trying to create this magnificent, extravagant property, and it's really not necessary. I tell you, when I first started Airbnb, I was literally only leasing out my sofa bed, and it was because I was having a hard time and I needed extra rent money. I've been doing Airbnb for a few years, so believe me, people will rent no matter what it is that you offer. They will rent because people need reasonable accommodations. And for many reasons, people sometimes don't want to stay in a hotel. It's not necessarily because of cost. Sometimes people just want the freedom and flexibility to feel like they can cook, they can do laundry, they can be on a sofa watching the TV in an actual home that's more comforting, especially if they're traveling with children or with a pet or with a spouse, or they're traveling with a large group. There's many reasons why Airbnb may be the preferred option for people. It's not necessarily just cost. So you want to also look at, how does your space compare to those other properties that you looked at in your neighborhood? You know, is your house considered to be the jewel because it's antique? You know, does it have a unique design? Is it a corner property? Is it located to something special, close to something special? You know, what makes your property different and unique, comparable to the other listings in your area? For example, I'm only 3 blocks from the Capitol. That makes me stand out because everybody wants to be able to come to DC and not have to worry about parking. They want to be able to walk everywhere. And where I live, you can walk to pretty much anything. You can walk to the Smithsonian, you can walk to the waterfront. Union Station is literally 10 minutes away. Eastern Market is 10 minutes away. There's so much to do within walking distance. And I make sure that I mention that in my listing. My house is an older house. It's not a fancy house. I have it decorated with all of the things from my work abroad. So it's very artistic, but it's not fancy and it's not big. But the location is the selling point. And so that's what I stress in my listing. And the photos highlight the artistic nature of the decor. So, you know, you want to think about all those things when you first get on the platform. You're thinking about what the purpose of the platform, what the pricing is going to be, what makes your property special, and also what makes your location special. So again, customizing your listing, you want to know your target audience. So all the things that I've talked about just now are things that you're going to keep in the back of your mind. But when you decide what you actually want to focus on in terms of how you market, you want to know who your target audience is. For example, I have a cat and I need people that stay here to take care of my cat. So I'm not going to be marketing my house to college students because typically they're not going to be the most responsible when it comes to pet care. So even though there are a lot of universities in the area, DC is, you know, I think we have maybe 4 or 5 schools that are pretty close to each other. My neighborhood, there's all types of bars that young people hang out, but I don't mention that in my listing because I don't really want to attract young people who may come and just want some place to hang out while they go party. And then my poor cat is here with a dirty litter box and no clean water. So, you know, you want to think about who your target audience is. I also don't want small kids in my house. So I don't have anything in my listing that would make it, you know, stand out to someone traveling with a young child. I don't provide any type of stroller or what do you call the little bassinet. I don't provide any toys, which is what people do if they are trying to target families. They do provide those things. I don't provide anything like that because I don't want to attract people with small kids. You want to think about what draws visitors to your area. Again, like I mentioned, for me, it's the Capitol, it's the Smithsonian. You know, mention those things in your listing. In terms of the location of your home, how accessible are you to public transportation? If you're trying to attract business travelers, what corporations are headquartered near you? Are they going to be able to walk from work to your house? If you're trying to accommodate people who may be coming because they're on a work vacation, you know, do you have your home set up for a home office? Is there space where they can, you know, telecommute while they're staying at your place? All those things you want to make sure you include when you customize your listing. And how to make your listing stand out in search results. So this really comes down to making sure you are choosing the right wordage when you write up all these things. Because when people search, you're going to want your property to be top of the list, especially if you're in a large city, because there are going to be a lot of other homeowners in your area who are probably going to be on Airbnb, and you don't want to get lost in the shuffle. So pay attention to how other people have listed their properties. Do your own search. Number one is what I recommend. Do a search for something similar to what you're offering and see what words come up first in the search bar and make sure you include that in your listing. You want to make sure that you stay up to date too. So this is not like something you just do when you initially create your listing and never do it again. You want to be doing it periodically. I recommend every month because things change quite rapidly with real estate. So you want to stay on par with what other customers are doing and make sure that you stay competitive. Airbnb does have a feature that allows you to use a fluctuating pricing scale where you set your minimum price and they will, based on the market, allow the price to go up to fit whatever is going on. So like, for example, if it's Thanksgiving or it's a time when a lot of people come to the city for a festival, like Airbnb knows that the algorithm predicts this is what the best price would be comparable for what you're offering, and they will raise the price automatically. Some people don't like it. Some people say the price that they raise it to is still too low. I haven't found that to be the case. When I've checked, I have found the prices that they give me to be comparable with other properties in my neighborhood. But you might just want to verify for your own location to make sure that that is the case for you. I think it's an excellent feature. It really allows you to take a lot of guesswork out of the pricing, but it is very important that the minimum that you set is a minimum that you're comfortable with because they will go down. Also, if you set your minimum too low, you may end up getting, a price that you're unhappy with. And from my own experience working with other Airbnb hosts, what I have found is that when people set their price too low, then they run the risk of attracting guests who may not be of the best caliber. So you want people who are going to respect your house rules, people that are not going to be tearing up your property. So you don't want to go so low that you are attracting the wrong type of people. Payment. So Airbnb has several ways that they allow you to collect your. You can have their direct deposit into your bank account. For most bank accounts, I would say it takes 2 or 3 days. I've used this feature with two different bank accounts that I have, and one only took 1 day, the other took 2 days. International wire, if you are abroad and you have a house in a different country, that's an option for you. Payoneer is like a debit card. I do have a Payoneer card. I have used it when I have been overseas for an extended period because it works in Europe. It does work here as well, but having my money go straight to a bank card that I know that I can use in different countries has been the best option for me at different times. So I've used Payoneer. PayPal is what I typically use because that's what I use for most of my business invoicing. So it just helps me with my own record keeping to have the money coming into PayPal. And PayPal's instant. You get paid within 24 hours with Airbnb. The payment is released 24 hours after the people move in, and not when they physically move in, when your move-in time is set. So my move-in time, check-in time is 3 p.m. So if the person gets there at 12, it doesn't affect what time I get paid. I still get paid 3 p.m. the next day because the 3 p.m. is the check-in time that I have in the system. So with PayPal, I see that money exactly at 3 p.m. when they release it. With the bank deposit and with Payoneer, it takes a couple days. Even though they release it, their processing is dependent on your bank, so it can take more time. Photography tips. Photography is actually the number one thing that hosts ask me about when they sign up with Airbnb. As an Airbnb ambassador, I'm automatically linked with new hosts through Airbnb's system. And I would say 8 out of 10, photography is the number one question. How should I take my photos? What type of photos should I take? And it's really pretty easy. You just want to make sure you have a clean and decluttered space. Make sure you have prepared each room fully for the impression that you want to set. Think about what would you want to see if you were going to a place to stay. what would make you feel comfortable. You definitely want to make sure you're showing the room from different angles and that it's well lit. When the space is dark, it's less inviting, and people tend to not want to book a space that doesn't look warm and cozy. So the lighting is very, very important. Um, you want to take panoramic shots if you can, try to get as much of a wide view as possible. And the inside of the listing is much more important than the outside. I've seen a lot of people spend a lot of time taking photos of their garage and their backyards and the front of their house. And those things are nice, but they can't overpower the listing. People want to know, where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to eat? What does the bathroom look like? Is it clean? Is it sanitary? Particularly now with COVID, sanitation is number one. So those pictures are very, very important. And like I was mentioning, in the beginning, with how I have, things up on my walls from my travels abroad, and I have a lot of unique artwork, that paints a portrait of who I am as a person, my lifestyle. And so when people come here, they know immediately I'm in someone's home. This person is well traveled. This person is kind of quirky. She has all these very interesting art pieces. And in my reviews, people actually comment on how much they really like that. They find it to be a very interesting component to their stay, because it's not, a cold void, a minimalist, kind of empty space that they're now walking into. They're walking into someone's home, and it feels cozy and warm and inviting. So you want to think about all of that when you do your photography. And on another note with the photography, it does not need to be professional photos. I have my pictures up that I have taken with my iPhone, and they are just fine. You can get professional photos if you want. Airbnb does offer that service. I think it really goes down to what type of property are you renting. If you're a person that has gone all out, and you have this magnificent mountain, resort home, or a beautiful beach vacation home, then yeah, then you may want to invest in getting some professional photos. But if it's just a picture of your home that you're staying in, and you're just offering, a space for people to come and feel welcome and comfortable, your pictures with your phone is just fine, provided you have a good phone, of course, and the pictures are legible and clear, not pixelated or anything like that. So responsible hosting, being responsive, that is number one. You want to be responding to people immediately, if not immediately, within a few hours. Airbnb does have a function that allows you to set up automatic responders, so that if you're going to be traveling, or if you're going to be, busy for whatever reason, you can set up automatic responders so that at least people will know that you got their booking, you're ready to host them, and just, hello and thank you for, booking with me. Is there any specific questions that you have? Just the basic introduction to the space and yourself is definitely something you want to do. They're going to ask you questions. Even though you may have a listing that's well written out, you may have described, your home well and all of your amenities, they're still going to ask you questions. I have in my listing very clearly, only street parking is available. A parking pass will be provided, and I still get questions, is parking available? So, and what type of parking is it? I even have a photo of where you park on my photos, and they still ask me that. So you just never know. And you can also create quick responses. So quick responses are little blurbs that you have pre-written out, so that, frequently asked questions can be answered without you having to go through and rewrite the same information over and over again. And there's a space in your mailbox where you store your quick replies. And so when you're ready to answer someone who's asked one of those frequently asked questions, you just click the necessary quick reply, and it makes your ability to respond to them so much more seamless. You definitely want to accept as many reservation requests as possible. Airbnb has a system that allows you to do automatic acceptance, which I do have turned on. But the caveat for me is that the person must have a complete Airbnb profile with their identification uploaded into the system. So for Airbnb's minimum standards, the person only needs to be verified based on their phone number and their email. They don't necessarily have to have their ID in the system. I'm not comfortable with people staying in my house without any ID in the system because this is my home that I actually live in. And if they do something, I want to know that I have all the information I could possibly need to, go after them or sue them or do whatever I need to do. So I don't allow anyone to come who doesn't have an ID. So with the automatic reservation system, I have that box checked that says that they must have an ID in order for them to be an automatic booking. Avoid canceling. Cancellations is something that can really get you into a lot of trouble with Airbnb. So you say your cancellation policy. For me, I have a very strict cancellation policy because in the past, I would have people book the space and it'll be, a couple of days before they're ready to come and then they want to cancel. But I've already held the space and, getting a last minute booking isn't always an option. So, I'm losing money because you're not going to be here and I have a cat that needs someone to take care of him. So what am I going to do now? I have to call friends. Hey, can you come over and take care of the cat? So it creates a lot of stress for me. So I don't allow that. You have to have within 72 hours of making your reservation to cancel if you expect to get your money back from me. And so there are many levels, actually. I think there's about 6 of them, 6 different levels of cancellation policy that you can choose from. But one thing for you that you got to be mindful of is that whatever level of cancellation you choose for your guests will affect the penalties that Airbnb levies against you if you cancel. So like for me, because I have a very strict cancellation policy, my canceling on a guest could mean that I lose my SuperHost status. It could mean that I have a note put on my profile saying that I have canceled on guests. So it's very severe, but I don't cancel on guests unless there is an emergency. And if there is an emergency, a legitimate emergency, you're sick, you've had an injury, some catastrophe has happened to your home, you can get around any penalties by going through Airbnb support and letting them know that this is, an unavoidable circumstance and verifying that it's an unavoidable circumstance, and they will not levy those penalties against you. So if it's a legitimate emergency, you can get around the penalties. And getting positive reviews. So as I mentioned, I am a SuperHost, and that is what has allowed me to become a SuperHost Ambassador, which is a new program that they just started to take some of the burden off of the staff. So SuperHost Ambassadors are people who work directly with new hosts to help them get their listings up, help them increase their chances of getting booked, and pretty much just answer any questions that they may have. I'm on call 24/7. So people are able to contact me through the app and I am able to walk them through whatever problems they have. So when you are a SuperHost, you come up first in the Airbnb search results. So as I mentioned earlier about optimizing your listing for search, you get an advantage if you also a SuperHost. You're gonna pop up on that front page automatically. So that's definitely something that you want. There's other protections and benefits in place for being a SuperHost. Like for example, you get expedited customer support. If you have a problem, you don't have to wait, for an extended period of time for someone to decide to get back to you. They're going to get back to you immediately because you're an asset to the company. What else can I say? In terms of making sure you get positive reviews, being very clear and upfront in your listing is number one. You don't ever want to paint a picture that you can't follow through on and have people come and be disappointed, because that will definitely ding you. They will make sure that they say in that review, I was expecting A, B, C, D, and this is what I got. And you definitely want to avoid that. You have to keep, I'm not sure the number, I think it's 4.8, 4.7, something like that to maintain SuperHost status. It is evaluated monthly. So you can be dropped as a SuperHost and you can you can have the opportunity to be reconsidered as a superhost, but ideally you want to get superhost and stay superhost, because it will increase your ability to earn on the platform. And that's definitely the goal. Plus, when people are deciding where to book, they're going to book the people that have the highest rating. If you have a 4.0 and somebody else has a 4.5, they're definitely going to go with that 4.5, unless they're just desperate, for the price that you're offering. But most people, nowadays are very particular about where they lease. I would say COVID has impacted that considerably, because one, there's less people, and two, more people are concerned with cleanliness and making sure that wherever they are is going to be a safe space where they're not going to get sick. So things you can do to get your reviews high is to do little things like leave, baskets of snacks out for them, leave coffee for them. I actually just leave instant coffee and sugar. I create like a little barista stand so they can make their own coffee. But however you want to set up that will make them feel like you've just gone like a little extra step to make them feel at home, that will be something that can help get you positive reviews. So tips and tricks. Most of these things here I have already mentioned, but this is an overview. So just to make sure everybody understands, you want to know your competitors, you want to look at their photos, you want to check their furniture, read their reviews, learn what guests love and hate about them. Managing guests, you contact Airbnb immediately if you have any issues. You don't want to be sparring back and forth with guests. There's a system in place for that. You don't have to do that. Allow for instant bookings. We discussed that. Understand the cancellation policy. And as I mentioned a minute ago, add any special touches. So coming up on the end here, these are some helpful links for you. I'll also put these links in the chat box so you can have them. And now it is time for Q&A.
And the insurance for Airbnb. Now, if somebody does do something, how do you go about that? Is that something that's built in? Is that an additional?
Yes, that is something that's built in. It's free. And that's one of the links that I included just now. So it's the one that says introducing Air Cover. Air Cover was just released actually a couple of days ago. Airbnb has always had insurance, but they expanded it to cover more things, like things that are a little bit less tangible, like someone smoked in my house and I can smell smoke. Because before, you had to submit all this paperwork to get reimbursement, and it is a reimbursement process. How do you prove smell? You really can't.
Right.
So they have made it a little bit easier for hosts to not have to worry about some of those intangible things. I mean, now if a person is every week, submitting a document saying that I smell smoke, and they may question it, what's going on here. But they have even included things like pet damage, which wasn't there before. And even if the person didn't tell you they were bringing a pet, but they did bring a pet, you can still get your money reimbursed. I think it's $1 million. I can actually pull up the Air Cover now while we're on the Zoom.
Yeah, I'm reviewing it as well.
You're reviewing as well, yeah, because it is something that they just expanded. Let's see.
And
I'll link. Okay, repeat what you said.
Yeah,
it is
I said, and as far as security is concerned, if someone's
go in and out. The security deposit. Is that what you were asking me about?
No, I was looking for security, like security cameras, things of that nature, the do's and the don'ts. Because if you're stating on your Airbnb, cannot host local parties or things of that nature, or just for example, I'm doing one right now this weekend in the Poconos, and it's like we need to know the plate number of the people who are going to be in the facility, along with the name. They want first, last name, and the age.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So they just, because it's in a community property, so you have to go through a gate, and they want to make sure that the two vehicles are registered and they're acknowledgeable upon entry of the community. But I do know people choose to host parties, and you click on your listing, we don't host parties. How are you able to determine and then say, you know what, you guys have to leave? I see that that's not the case.
Right. Well, the last link is the trust and safety concerns. So that information will be there. But anytime there's any issue at all, including people having parties in your house, you just contact Airbnb support. I mean, you can always have the police and come remove people, and then let Airbnb know afterwards if it's a serious issue. But contacting Airbnb support is pretty seamless. It's all done through the app, and they are very responsive. You can call them on the phone if you don't want to wait for text messages back and forth. There is a 1-800 number that you can call to talk to a live person.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've actually never had anyone have a party in my house or even suspect that anyone has had a party in my house. I think for the most part, people are pretty straightforward about what they're looking for when they contact you. Like even this past weekend, I was traveling and I had 5 people that stayed here, and I was a little nervous because my house is kind of small. I was like, "Ooh, 5 people is a lot," but it can hold 5 people. Have 2 sleep on the sofa bed, and that's what they did. And when I walked in, the house barely looked like anyone had been here. I was like, "Whoa!" It was in better shape than it was the last time I had hosted someone, and it was only a couple. So you just never know. But if you are, straightforward in your listing, and as I mentioned before, how you word your listing and who you market to, you typically will not attract people who are going to do something that you don't want them to do in your property. People know when they book their stays, if they're staying in a place where it's a little bit more conservative, or if they're staying in a place where it's a party spot. Anybody else have any other questions?
Simone, shoot away.
No, we chatted a little bit beforehand, and V, you asked a lot of the questions that I would have had or that I thought I would have had. So thank you. No, I'm just learning and listening.
I think Airbnb is really a game changer for a lot of people. I know here in DC, cost of living is extremely high. And for many people, it is how they pay their mortgages, it's how they pay their rent, and they are able to buy property that they probably would not be able to buy otherwise because of the consistent stream of income that they get from Airbnb. And of course, the biggest benefit is that you're paid within 24 hours. If you're doing a traditional lease, and you have someone that's subletting, or someone that's renting out your house for 2-3 months, you might get your money on time, you might not, and getting them out is very difficult because then you got to go through the court system. So I think that that in and of itself is one of the things that has really made Airbnb so much more attractive to people, particularly post-COVID. It's just a really good revenue stream to have, and it is something that can be scaled if you do it right.
My next question, because I know I'm big on theme, so I was trying to explain to my girlfriend Simone. I was like, when we do this, I'd like to curate it to a theme, and I know, like you were saying, you can make it eye catchy. There's some that I've been to that's like all pink and everything is, and those kind of stand out. Now, does Airbnb have the availability to say, well, I guess it does say like be able to host parties or bachelorette. It doesn't necessarily synchronize to keywords, correct?
No, I mean, so that would just be like SEO. So people do search for Airbnb listings through Google. So like someone may say bachelorette space, whatever location in the Google search bar, and then Airbnb, because it is a web-based platform, that the listing can pop up that way if you have your listing written out in a way that it's SEO, optimized. Yeah, I said SEO optimized as if the O isn't optimized, but you guys know what I mean.
Got it. All right, and long-term rental. Now, I do know people who do it for like a month or so like that. Do you include additional costs for the usage of electricity? Like, how do you go about doing that?
No. So you need to factor all that into your price. there isn't any place in the platform where you can put an additional fee for utilities or any other expense. So when you set your price for your unit, you want to be calculating, what your projection is for whatever other expenses you may accrue because you're doing a long-term rental. What some people do, they offer a set price for long-term, and then they may give like a discounted price for short-term stays. But also you need to make sure you check with your local municipality because a lot of places don't allow long-term stays on Airbnb, not legally anyway. So you can get hit with a fine if you're caught, and you're in, like, DC doesn't actually allow people to use Airbnb for more than 30 days, even though people do it. DCRA can come knocking on your door, and they do have investigators that literally physically walk around the city, knocking on doors, asking questions. So if your neighbor says, "Oh yeah, they've had a guy staying there for 6 months now," you could get in trouble. So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And when looking for a realtor for a space, is it available to us? What should we look for when we're looking to see what the local state laws regulate? Like, what do you research?
You research whoever is in charge of the zoning for whatever entity, because they're not called the same thing in every locale. So you Google your location and then zoning laws and see what government entity, what their name is, where you are, and contact them. Well, you don't have to contact them, but just read their website. And also you can also look for Airbnb hosts in your area and ask them questions. There are a lot of Airbnb host meetups. There's a lot of Airbnb host Facebook groups. And even on the Airbnb website, they do have some local specific information for places that have a lot of Q&A that comes up. Like I know for Florida, for example, Florida has some really dicey rules around Airbnb. So there's a lot of information on the site specific to Florida. So depending on where you are, there may also be for your area. I can't speak to specifics, but those are some options to check. For the DC area, I know because I actually used to manage a hostel here, and DCRA is our agency, and on their website, they have all that information. So you could probably find it pretty easily, I would imagine, wherever you are. So Caprice, you haven't said anything. Are you okay? You understand what's going on? Do you have any questions? Hope you can hear me. Okay. All right, Simone, you had a question? Oh, I saw you went off mute.
There we go. Yeah, now I'm off mute. For the long term, is it a price difference, or do they calculate it that same day-to-day rate for the 30 days? Or is it put in a different pricing category?
So Airbnb doesn't do the pricing. You do the pricing. You set your own pricing. So the only thing that Airbnb does offer where pricing is concerned is the smart pricing feature, which is calculated daily. So if you have the smart pricing feature on and someone books for, say, a month, so one day they may pay one rate, the next day they may pay another rate, but when they actually do their booking, it's going to be compound into one price.
Okay.
So yeah, all their days will be in one price. And again, you do have the ability to offer discounts for extended stays also. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
And you can actually control, even if you have smart pricing on, you can still control your pricing. You can block out an entire chunk of time and turn off the smart pricing for that period of time if you want to have that available for a long-term booking and you don't want them to have to deal with that price fluctuation from day to day.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we have a person of interest reach out to us and say, "Hey, I'm really interested in your thing. Are you negotiable with your rate?" Do those things happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. They happen. And it is up to you. So when, say, someone sends you a request for a booking, or even if they've already booked, you can do it before or after the fact. There's a feature where you can go into that booking and modify the rate. So an example would be for me, sometimes I'm traveling for long periods of time and I only have one, group that wants to come for a week, but I'm going to be gone for a month. And I have this cat here I need to book for my subsequent, time period. In between those times, that means I'm not going to be around to, make sure that everything's, up to par between guests. And if I don't have someone that I've contracted with to come and clean the space for me, I will make sometimes an arrangement with the people and say, hey, I'll waive your cleaning fee if you're willing to clean up after yourself. Send me checkout photos and I'll reimburse you the cleaning fee. That way, the next guest can come into a clean house. I don't have to worry about dealing with a third party, and they're happy to get their cleaning fee back. So there's a lot of ways you can manage it.
Got it. And do you personally have someone that comes in and clean, or do you do that yourself?
I do it myself because it's my own home. The only time that I've ever had someone come in clean for me is when I have been abroad for an extended period. I have hired an Airbnb helper to come and clean and change the sheets and do the laundry and all that stuff. But typically I do it myself, and I do charge a cleaning fee.
Okay, I think I'm questioned out.
Well, if no one else has any more questions, I hope you found this useful. And you are free to reach out to me if you do have any other questions that you think of. You can message me, email me. You have my contact information in your what's the word I'm looking for? Confirmation. And of
Are
course,
you able to put the link to your Airbnb so we can just take a look?
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. I don't think I know it by heart. Let me pull it up. My listings. So this is V talking, right? You weren't here in the beginning, but I actually have multiple listings on my profile, so I'll send the link to my profile. And from the profile, you can see the different listings. One thing I think too that is important, your profile is also important. It is as important as your listing. People want to know who you are. Who am I renting from? Because Airbnb is structured to be personal. So I have a nice photo here. It shows I'm a sushi, pretty important. Who are you? Whose house is this person going to be in? Even if your renting is really only for Airbnb, you don't live there, you don't want it to come across like a business transaction. You want people to still think about, what makes you interesting, what makes you unique, and include that in your profile. As you can see on my profile, I'm also an Airbnb.org supporter. Airbnb gives money to homeless projects, and it also provides housing to people who are refugees. I give 10% of everything that I earn through the platform to the Airbnb.org, so that badge is reflected on my profile. And then you see my two different listings that I have currently open. A guidebook is another thing that you can add that people really like, interesting things about where you live, places to go, things to see, places to eat, transportation information. That's the kind of stuff you put in your guidebook. And then of course your reviews. You are able to respond to reviews if you want to. I don't typically respond to the positive reviews, but I will respond to the negative reviews. I can't just have that sitting out there in the ethos without any kind of response to it. So I have one lady here that was here last week that posted, made sure I gave a pretty thorough response to what she wrote. But for the most part, you'll find there's no need to really respond to all of them. It's just really up to you. If you get people who do come repeated, I would say respond to them. I do have a few people that have rented from me more than once, and I like to show that they have rented from me more than once. So I will say, in my response to them, oh, thank you so much for being a repeat visitor. It's so great to see you. I really enjoy every time you come. Because when I do my bedroom rental, I'm here with them. And so I am interacting with them when they're here. And that's another thing. So you can actually specify who rents from you when you are going to be in the house. So like, for example, I have this one listing for my son's room. For those of you who weren't here in the beginning, I mentioned that I rent out my son's room whenever he is with his dad. We rotate every other week. So to rent that room is for vaccinated females only. It used to just say female only, but we're living in a pandemic now. So you need to be vaccinated if you're going to be in the house with me. I'm in public health. I don't play. I don't play with the COVID. I've been these numbers all day. I'm not playing with COVID. So vaccinated female only in my child's room. And they know they have to send me proof of their vaccine card. I can usually tell if it's been forged because I know what to look for. But they have to send me that ahead of time. And if they are approved, then they can rent that room. But I would not be able to specify that they were female only if they weren't sharing space with me. So they share the kitchen and they share the bathroom with me. So because of that, I'm able to specify female only. But if you're not sharing a space with someone, you can't have any specifications like that because it will be deemed as discriminatory. You definitely can't put anything in there about any type of race. So I can have vaccinated Black female only. Even though I'm Black, I couldn't do that. So that would definitely be a no-go under any circumstance. But vaccinated, I can because it's a pandemic. Female, I can because that's a safety issue. So a little bit more information for you. The other listing I have for my cat, low rate plus convenience in exchange for cat sitting. I set my rate typically about 10% lower than my neighbors. And that's my way to entice people to stay here instead of there and take care of my kitty. And a lot of people really like cats. So he's very cute. I put his picture on the listing page and it attracts people who actually sometimes just want to be in a space where there's a cat. So ironically, that worked out for me. And actually having him taken care of when I travel was the reason I started Airbnb. Oh yeah, a little bit more information. I think that is all I have. So you can see from my picture different angles showing the apartment. And in my description, I also have, why it says, I travel and I'm going to be, I need someone that can come and take care of the house and take care of, my minimum price that I set for my apartment is actually $85. So if someone were to book tonight, the automatic pricing has increased it to $95. And the calendar. So the dates that are marked out are the dates that the house, at least under this listing, is not available. I'm not going to be traveling again until the 3rd. So these dates are available. These are the dates when I need someone to come here and stay with Kitty. My other listing has different dates of availability, and you can sync the two calendars to make sure that there's no overlap between dates, just in case, there may be an instance where someone is in one room and then someone books your entire house. You want to make sure that doesn't happen or vice versa. So you can actually sync your calendars for your multiple listings in the system so that doesn't happen. So yeah, these are my reviews and then the map of the area and any other little tidbits that Airbnb wants people to know. Check-in, check-out time, no smoking, no pets, no parties. And then the health and safety things that I offer. I have a smoke alarm, but I do have a carbon monoxide alarm. What else is in here? Security deposit, $100 is what I charge. Cancellation policy is actually strict. I don't know why it's not here, but it is there when you actually go to book. So that is it, ladies. That is all I have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
No problem. So again, if you have any questions, you need me for anything else, please feel free to reach out and please use my referral link. Only the people who are the ambassadors are getting referral credit now. They're not allowing hosts to refer each other and get credit. They've stopped that practice. So the ambassador program is a very new program. They just started it last month, but it is a way for them to make sure that hosts are getting, one-on-one coaching and getting off to a good start. So I've enjoyed it, and I would love for you guys to be a part of my team. So my link is there. So that's all for now. You guys have a great night.
Likewise.
night.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.